is lived experience. And I'm a mom, and I have a lot to offer to the conversation, because what I think is really important is that we are removing the stigma from these, like Sarah said, these very sort of hush topics. And I am very honored to be with you all this evening. I'm extremely honored that we have Morgan's Message with us. It's an organization, like I said, as a mom, that I have been watching very carefully and learning a lot about. And Donna, who is Morgan's mother, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and really tell us a little bit more about Morgan's Message.
And hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Sarah and Missy, for having us. It's an honor to be here and chat with your audience tonight. So as Missy said, I am Morgan's mom. My name is Donna Rogers. I am co-founder and president of Morgan's Message. We started Morgan's Message it was exactly a year to the day after we lost Morgan. Morgan passed away in July of 2019, and we created Morgan's Message in 2020 of July in the wake of losing her. Morgan's story, it's a little complicated, but the short version is Morgan suffered in silence. Morgan was a lacrosse player at Duke University. She was on the women's lacrosse team there. She was a very successful athlete in pretty much all sports, but she chose lacrosse, played sports her whole life. In January of 2017, she suffered a devastating knee injury that actually turned out to be career-ending. But at the time of the injury, which was 2 weeks before her sophomore season, there was no talk of being career-ending by any means. And she dove into her rehab just as much as she dove into anything that Morgan attempted. Full steam ahead, 6 days a week, really hit it hard. She was very determined to get back on the field. But it wasn't until after this injury, about 10 months later, that we started to notice some physical signs that her mental health may have been declining. Now, we knew nothing about mental health. We knew nothing about mental illness. Morgan never suffered with anything. She wasn't in and out of hospitals. We just were uneducated. She suffered in silence. She didn't let anyone in on what she was dealing with. It was a very lonely battle that she obviously lived through. We found out everything about what she dealt with afterwards. She wrote a lot of things down. And so, unfortunately, she suffered in silence and alone, and she really did feel like no one would ever understand what she was going through. So her family and former teammates, which are also close friends, started Morgan's Message because we wanted to change that. We wanted to save the Morgans out there, because no one deserves to lose their Morgan. We wanted to normalize the conversations that surround mental health. We want to build communities where student athletes can come together and talk about mental health before it gets to a crisis situation. We want to normalize these conversations. We want to equalize the treatment between physical and mental health in athletics. Most athletes, by the time they get to high school or college, have been doing sports pretty much their whole life. And they've probably, along the years, suffered some hopefully minor injuries, physical injuries, and they can go to an ER, they can go to an urgent care, they can get a doctor's appointment within a day or two. And it's very, very different with mental health struggles. So we want to equalize that as one of our missions. But bottom line is, the stigma that surrounds mental health is what prevents everyone from feeling comfortable with talking about this topic. We know it is what prevented Morgan from getting the help she needed. We know that the stigma was the reason why she didn't open up to her friends, her teammates, her family, all the people that loved and trusted her. And we know that because she wrote that down in not so many words. So we're out to change that. Morgan's Message was created to give student athletes a community where this was normalized. It was to share stories, make people feel less alone, empower those that are suffering, and make sure that they don't feel alone anymore. So that is what we're doing. Like I said, we started in 2020, and I've got two of our friends of Morgan. Some dates back to her childhood. Tommy was a childhood friend, and Lene Morgan met in college at Duke, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but they work for Morgan's Message as liaisons. make no mistake, they have full-time jobs outside of Morgan's Message. They work for us and help us because of the passion they have for the topic of mental health and the importance of it, for their loss losing Morgan. And we are so proud that they work for us because they do a phenomenal job. And I'm so proud of each and every one of them. So with that, I will let them introduce themselves. But again, thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you. Tommy, why don't we start with you? Tommy, I believe, knew Morgan since middle school, so 2019 graduate of Virginia Military Institute. Tell us a little bit about your background, Tommy, and what Morgan's Message means to you.
Absolutely. I just want to say thanks, Missy, thanks, Sarah, and the entire Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation for having us tonight. Really means a lot as a current expat of Virginia living outside of the state. In Texas, I love, connecting back with my roots, and any chance I can get back there, even if it's virtually. But my name is Tommy Smith. I have been working with Morgan's Message for about 2.5 years now. As Missy mentioned and Donna briefly, I had the pleasure of first meeting Morgan and her twin sister Averly way back in middle school. Fauquier County, for those of you who know, it's a pretty small place, and especially once we started coming up into high school, and the athletics really took forefront. Certainly for me, having that relationship with Morgan previously, and then as soon as we got into high school, she was the star athlete on every team she played for, and that obviously lasted, through her high school career, and getting to kind of have that competition with her, from different schools, but definitely fueled me to be better, because she broke every record I was trying to break, and almost doubled it each season. So I currently live in Austin, Texas. I work in construction management full time, and been down here for about a year and a half. That's a little bit about me, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Lene.
Hello, everyone. My name's Lene Belton, as everyone has said. Like Tommy and Ms. Donna have said, thank you guys for having us, and thank you to everyone who's watching and will watch in the future as well, also, because this is always an important topic to talk about. But like I said, my name is Lene Belton. I grew up in Maryland, and I found my niche in basketball, and eventually went on to play basketball at Duke University, and that's how I met Morgan. The athlete community there at Duke is very close, and that is, even if you're not best friends with someone, every athlete that's on campus, just because we eat together, we train together, we have our own little community, we go to the same social events, and not saying we exclude non-athletes, but we just gravitate towards each other. So I got to know Morgan throughout college, and then I joined Morgan's Message because of the connection I have through Morgan. I'm also someone who at one point suffered in silence, and I wanted to start the conversation and help someone who was in my position, who was in Morgan's position, as much as I could. So yeah.
Great. And I feel like it's something we need to make clear to the audience. We are not here, any of us on this panel, to say that participation in athletics is in any way negative. We talked about that in our meeting earlier this week. It's quite the opposite. I believe we all have a shared passion for the positivity of athletic participation, through either the social skills, the teamwork, the confidence, the organization, the leadership, all the many wonderful things that participation in athletics can bring to the student athlete. What we are here to do is to not only share our experiences, but also how both organizations, both the Cameron Gallagher Foundation and Morgan's Message, has taken pain and put it into purpose. We're here to educate. We're here to make you aware. It is our hope that through this particular conversation, that maybe somebody on with us this evening maybe recognizes some signs and symptoms in their own student athlete. Maybe you're a coach, you're a parent, or an athlete who's on with us. And maybe this starts a conversation between parents and students. Whatever the case may be, we hope everybody walks away with something that's very empowering to them, something that they can use to a tool that they can put in their tool belt. That's kind of the terminology we use at the CKG Foundation. It's the power of being positive, preventative, and proactive with your mental health. So, with that, let's kind of, dive in a little bit. Donna, you said that Morgan, she suffered in silence. And for someone who, like Lene said, it's a very sort of tight-knit, athletic community there at Duke University. I'm sure you've thought in your head time and time again, where did I miss the signs? But you were saying that there were no signs. In hindsight, was there anything outside of obviously the devastation of having her injury and trying to sort of rebuild to that you see now that you feel like you can impart on other parents?
Yeah, like I said, most of the things we learned was post losing Morgan. So the signs that she showed actually were so subtle, or they were expected. So for example, we started to see her be discouraged. We started to see her look really tired. But we expected that 10 months after surgery and into rehab, when we started to notice the physical signs, we thought they were normal signs of bumps in the road of life. And so they were hard to see. In hindsight, if we were to really hold the microscope to it, her sleep patterns were horrific. They were all over the board. Now, mind you, this is a college student, so she wasn't living with us full time. So we were only privy to what she would tell us. But when she would come home, we noticed that she slept a lot. And when she slept, it was at different times of the day. It was during the day. She was up at night. It was very sporadic. Now, we also were told that that's what college kids do when they come home, when they're athletes and they come home. They just want to sleep for the first, 3 days that they're home on a long vacation. So, but in hindsight, it wasn't healthy that she was sleeping during the day and up at night. I wasn't aware of it as well. She was at the age where she would go to bed when she was ready. I went to bed hours before she would. So I really wasn't aware of it until she would say something like, when I would see that she was tired and she was slagging or she was gone to the gym and then came home and took a nap. I'm like, why are you so tired? And she said, well, I didn't go to bed until 6 this morning. Bingo. Okay. That's a sign. I have learned since dramatic changes. Dramatic is the key word. Dramatic changes in personality or interests. People are going to go up and down. It's life. But looking back, she really started to hang out with different people, not worse people. I just didn't hear about her close friends in college as much as I used to hear about them when I would call and ask, how your day went, things like that, how your week went. I found out later that was, a little bit of a red flag, that she wasn't doing the things that she used to love. Again, she had an excuse for all of it. Morgan tried so hard to hide what she was going through. And that's the tricky ones. A lot of athletes do that. They feel like they have the world on their shoulders and they're the ones that are supposed to solve it all on their own, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to normalize these conversations, because I really feel like if she thought there were normal athletes out there that were suffering or going through things that she may have had the strength to reach out and say something. But according to her and her notes, no one would ever understand that.
It's almost as if, and I've read this in a lot of articles, that by that admission, they were admitting that they were weak, that it's a sign of weakness. And in particular, in our conversations with young male athletes, Tommy, I'm going to turn this next question over to you. That ability to be vulnerable, in particular, is really difficult. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience? Really, even as an athlete at the school that you went to, is that something that you felt like either you could do, had the support system to do, is to sort of be vulnerable with like your feelings as well as your own mental health?
Certainly. So what I did mention previously is I did originally commit to VMI for lacrosse and football. So I got there my freshman year. In the fall, played football. I lettered that year and had a really good fall, which is typically a pretty strenuous and rough freshman year at VMI. And so leading up to that, going into my first Thanksgiving break, back from VMI right after football season, I was just in full speed ahead. Not really taking as much time for myself, just gearing up for lacrosse season, because I knew that I had missed the last 4 months, the entire fall semester, away from the team while I was playing football. And I kind of knew the whole time, it was going to be really tough trying to play 2 D1 sports at a military school, and that really tough freshman year at VMI. And it wasn't until we had gotten back from Christmas break in January. The season had started. We were about 3 weeks in, and I could tell something was off. My head wasn't really in the game. I could pretty easily tell that missing those 4 months and getting to know the team and really being the only new one coming in the spring right before our first game at Army was going to leave me in a tough position, especially for my entire freshman year. And that's when I think I first originally had, could tell that there were extraneous and external factors kind of weighing on me that I needed to try to figure out. And just like you said, at the time, especially at VMI, you're a freshman, you're looked down upon, if you will, from the rest of the core. And it really does feel like an alone kind of feeling, especially lacrosse had been my main sport my whole life. And I really wanted to do it for my family, for my parents, especially, who supported me all those years. And right before our first game, about a week before, I went into the coach's office and I had to quit the team. And that was probably one of the tougher moments that I had in my freshman year. And I was really worried about how my parents were gonna handle it, but just having the courage to kind of explain to them, what was going on with me and kind of how I felt and saw myself. I could say I played 2 sports in college for 4 years, but if I didn't feel like I could really give it my all in either one, then I wasn't going to feel good about myself at the end of the day. And that, I think, still at that time, whether there could have been somebody outside of my family that I could have talked to, I personally didn't see the resources. And we're only talking about 2015 here, and the stigma was there, especially at a military school. And I think there have been steps to change that. I actually have an ambassador at VMI on the lacrosse team now, which is awesome. But at that time, I wasn't aware of the resources that really were out there, especially given being a male athlete. And then, in turn, is one of the reasons that I decided to join Morgan's Message, because I still see that on campuses. I had experiences similar to that. And I definitely think, the male conversation is something that needs to grow. And just some of our ambassadors seeing that we do have 2 current liaisons on the staff right now that are males and former college athletes, that really, I think, helps kind of shed that light and might get some other young male athletes to open up.
That's wonderful. Lene, you mentioned that, first of all, playing basketball at Duke, and then, to be honest, this UNC fan knows really only a whole lot about Duke's men's basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a pretty powerful and an impressive sport at this university. And I can only imagine the stress that comes with. Tell us a little bit about when you began recognizing the symptoms in yourself and what steps you took from that point forward.
I first started noticing symptoms before I actually got to Duke, and it kind of started with the recruiting process. And it was I hated the recruiting process by any means. I would never want to go back through it, but it was just because I didn't have time to myself. When I got home from practice, when I got home from school, I went from I also went to school 45 minutes away from my home. So I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would take the school bus from my area to where I went to school, go through school all day, then go right to practice, and then take a bus back. And the bus back from home was, and the bus there was the only time I had to myself. So 45 minutes out of 24, 45 minutes times two out of 24 hours a day is the only time I had to myself because and then when I got home, I had to do homework or I had to be on the phone with coaches. And so I didn't know myself, and I felt myself getting into the overwhelmingness of the I need to talk to this coach, I need to do this for my sport, and it was a lot of pressure. And I actually told my parents after I had signed to Duke my senior year that I didn't want to play college basketball anymore, and I wanted to drop out. And my dad thankfully did not. He was like, I think we should think about this a little bit more. Let's not make a rash decision right now. But I also did not know how to open up to my parents as well as I do now. Because back that was 2013, 2014, I didn't know what mental health was. And I had a what is it called? I had a overview of what it was, but I didn't think it would happen to me. I didn't think that I needed to talk to my parents that I was going through depression state. And so because I didn't open up to them, I didn't get the help that I needed, I continued through that when I went to college. And sadly, my freshman year, I tore my ACL. And it was kind of at the point where like the pieces just started to click. I went through summer workouts, I went through preseason, and I was playing in a game. I think it was against either Nebraska or Wisconsin. They're both red, so one of the red schools. And it was the last, and I made a breakthrough as a freshman player. You see the work you're putting in, and you're excited at halftime, and you're excited towards the end of the game. The last 45 seconds, I went for a loose ball trying to do the last hustle play, and my teammate ran into my knee, and I ended up tearing my ACL. And it was like just when I saw the pieces start to click, it was taken away from me in just a second. And so also as a freshman in college, basketball was all I knew. Basketball was my purpose. Basketball was why I was at that school, which was, like you said, a phenomenal accomplishment for myself, but also a very high pressure for myself as well. And so I rehabbed, I got back to playing and everything, and the same thing happened every year. As soon as it started to click, I got hurt. And so my senior year of college, I actually decided to not play and just rehab and step away from basketball as a core and just be there for my teammates. And honestly, that was the best decision I ever made for myself. That was when I found who I was outside of sports, and I met a lot of my friends that weren't a part of athletics during that year, and I'm still very close with them. I'm seeing a lot of them this weekend at the Duke UNC football game, and it's just I found myself I found myself when I stepped away, and I could see that there was a purpose of myself outside of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. We say human over athlete, but that's something that's part of the conversation going on in our own home to sort of take this back, your perspective, all of your perspective from, college athletics, and just go backwards here a little bit for my own child, who I really resonated with your whole, I get up at 5 a.m. and then I'm going to practice. She gets up at that both of them do, 4 a.m. for swim practice, and they swim 2 hours before school. Occasionally for one of them, that might mean a double in the afternoon. And then you throw in high school swim, which just began, this week. And we kind of got to that point, which, I thank God for the foundation and for working here. And the fact that she has identified me as one of her trusted individuals. We say we always want every child to have 1 to 2 trusted individuals. We hope that's always a parent. Sometimes it's a coach, sometimes it's a friend, or it's a favorite teacher or professor. And she really came to us and said, this this junior year, everything that, kind of that she's facing. She's got that full AP IB load. And she really wanted an identity outside of swim, knowing, like you said, knowing who she was, and what her interests were going to be, and what's the life she's going to have after swim is over. Because as we all know, I mean, it's a very small percentage of athletes who sort of continue on into the professional career, the Olympic arena, or even share their passion through coaching. So finding out what those interests are and the human side of her and what she wanted to do, it really was difficult as a parent. And I even think maybe a little bit difficult because of where I work, to have to admit along with her, yes, she is suffering. The anxiety related to these decisions that she's getting ready to make. She would be more like a Division III athlete, capable, but academically she's Division I. And she very clearly stated to her dad and I, my academics and my future means more to me than anything. I don't want to sacrifice, one for the other. And I want to enjoy swim. I want to enjoy swim because all my friends are there. I want to enjoy swim because it is keeping me in shape, and see it for where it is. So you have this situation like where my oldest child is, that athletics is not going to be the college path. Maybe club swim, maybe something just, for fun and enjoyment. And as a parent, I have to take that step back and say, that's okay. It did break my heart maybe a little bit because all those hours and all that driving and all that time that we sit at swim meets, like I said, all three of them do it. So, we're in it to win it. It is a little bit heartbreaking. But I was able to sort of just to get that perspective that I want what's best for her for the long run. And for the long run, these are better choices for her. So it's good that on our panel that we are representative of lots of different paths here. This is obviously such an important topic. I know Sarah's already poised with a few questions already in the chat. So Sarah, take it away and let us know what you've got for us.
Thanks. Yeah. We have quite a few questions ready to go. And I know a few of you have talked about the time commitment, right? The driving, the practices, being on the phone with coaches. So you are spending a lot of time with these coaches, right? And maybe then athletic directors. And so we've got a couple questions that are closely related about what you would want coaches and athletic directors to hear and to take away, and how you think they could provide environments that make it safe to be vulnerable, right? How do you think they could better communicate that it is a strength to be able to share your struggles? Lene, we can start with you if you want to touch on that a little bit. What do you think coaches should hear?
So I actually do coach basketball now. And so the reason for me coaching, if you were to ask me junior year of college, would I ever coach again? The answer would be absolutely not. I would never think I would be here. But as I moved back to my hometown and seeing the teams that I grew up playing with, I wanted to make sure that the girls that are playing had a resource, because I didn't have a resource back then. And I wanted to make sure outside of basketball, I could care less about what you do on the court. Yes, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be your coach, but I am here for you on and off the court. And I think a lot of coaches now get blindsided and tunnel vision that I'm only here for you on the court. And that, especially at the college level, to be realistic, their jobs rely on 18 to 23-year-olds. And so they get tunnel vision. They forget that they have a life outside of the court or the field or wherever they're playing on. They have a life. They have a pet who may just die before practice. So they may not be on their P's and Q's. And so for coaches, athletic directors, just creating a safe space for them. I know with my organization, what I do is I'm normally the safe space compared to all the other coaches on my team, because I talk to them about mental health and everything. And everyone is okay with that. But every month we will have a sit down after practice, and we will write a letter to ourselves and talk about what we need for ourselves rather than what we need on the court, what we need to do for ourselves to help us balance on and off the court. And they have the chance to read this aloud so all their teammates can hear it, or they can just write it down and just get it out. Because a lot of times you're bottling up all these feelings, and if you don't know who to talk to, you don't have that designated person that Missy was talking about earlier, it's just sitting in you. And I'm sure when you're by yourself, that's all you're thinking about, and the thoughts are racing. And I've been there, I've heard players talk about it. And so just for you to be able to get it out, even if you just have a journal by yourself. I've recommended this to my players to have a journal. If you don't want to talk to me or your teammates, that's completely fine, but make sure it gets out. Make sure it's not just racing and being a constant reminder of the negatives in your life, and also talk about the positive in your life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I love that. And I love the monthly sit downs too. I think that's just so important for fostering your relationships with your players. Yeah. Donna, do you have anything that you might add to that for coaches, athletic directors to take away?
The only thing, again, I'm not really, that's not my forte. I was a college athlete for a very brief period of time. The culture begins with the coach. If the coach is open, coach doesn't even have to be knowledgeable about mental health. But if the coach is open to learning and expressing to his players or her players that they're willing to learn, they're willing to listen, I think that sets the groundwork to letting the players know that they're okay with coming out and speaking about mental health publicly. And mental health is on a spectrum. It doesn't mean one extreme or the other. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between. And that's really all we're asking coaches to understand a little bit, is that, as Lene said, you're going to have a bad day here and there. It would be nice if the coaches could at least acknowledge that maybe they're having a bad day. On the other side of that, I agree with what Lene said, especially at the college level. Guys, the coach's job is to win games or meets or matches. They can get fired if they don't. So I understand that their job has to be a little bit tunnel vision, but they also have a coaching staff. Mm-hmm. And so setting the culture on the team, maybe through the coaching culture of the coaching staff, I think that could be really beneficial. But just let your players know that you are open to the idea that mental health is a thing. Believe it or not, there's coaches out there that don't believe that mental health is part of your overall health. I think it's really important just to let your players know that you are aware that this is a thing and that it does matter. They don't have to deal with it directly, but they set the culture. And I think it's important.
Absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
When completely agree with everything Donna said, but in another way that if there are any coaches watching, when I have my sit downs with my organization, I also write a letter to myself, and 9 times out of 10, I am the one to read my letter first so that the players know that I have a lot going on, so that they feel more welcome to opening their stories up, because me as a superior has opened up my story as to them.
Yeah, reminding them that you're also human, right? So Tommy, do you think there's anything that you might add to that, looking back, what you might tell coaches?
I obviously echoing what Donna and Lene said, but no matter if it's rec league, high school, or college athletics, there's going to be that first informational meeting. There's going to be the first practice. There's going to be the first time the whole team gets together. And then I think that's really where the coach sets the tone, because other than some pretty extreme circumstances, I know in school districts where you might just need somebody to fill in the spot as the field hockey coach or the lacrosse coach, most of the coaches are there because of some reason and they want to be there. And I think that having that reason behind them and wanting to be there, and whatever their reason may be to coach, if it's just a passion for the game, a passion for teaching kids, I think, really any coach should be able to pretty easily reiterate that they care about their players. And even if I had coaches that I know I personally wouldn't probably confide in, but there's somebody on the staff. And a lot of times, especially from playing rec league sports to through high school, you're going to have a younger coach. And it's kind of like what I'm hearing from Lene is she seems the most approachable, and the athletes are going to confide in her the most or feel like they can go to her for advice. And I think, like Donna said, there's a whole coaching staff, especially in college. You've got anywhere from 5 to could be 15 people on the staff. And I just think from an athletic director perspective, just having that flow from the top down, through your whole athletic department, and just reiterating that, you all are here obviously for a purpose, and in college that might be to win games, but we also, have the responsibility, and we're spending a lot of time with these athletes, and we definitely have a responsibility to foster and improve their experiences in this very formidable age in their lives. So that's all I have to add there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for answering those. I have one for you, Lene. Besides asking how you're doing or how was practice, what are some better questions that parents can ask to have a better measure or a better feel on how our children are really doing when they're away from school?
I think if my parents asked me, what do you need from me, would have changed a lot. I'm not, my parents are amazing. Not saying any shade to them. I love them to death and they've always been there. But it was kind of always the how was practice, how was your day? But it wasn't really like, what do you need from me? And I think as my parents, if I was overwhelmed, I would have said, Mom, Dad, like, I need you to leave me alone. I need everyone to leave me alone. I just need like some time to myself, or I need to go to Chick-fil-A and get a strawberry milkshake. Just something where I felt that no matter what I asked, they were going to support me. And I feel like if I did ask that, they would have given to me in a heartbeat, just for clarification. But I didn't know how to say it. And I think that was my problem in high school and beginning of college. I didn't know how to say it. So just questions of like, what do you need from me? Or is there anything I can do? And even if there isn't a question, but your kid, as far as strawberry milkshake's the only thing coming to my head.
Fair.
It's a good thing.
After a hard day,
Now I want one.
if my parents had that for me after a hard day, I would just feel like some sense of like woo-saw in me, and just been able to say, okay, I can drink this milkshake and keep going on with my day after this.
I wanted to piggyback off of that. For us, we try very hard not to ask closed-ended questions that would elicit like a one-word response. And something that they've actually both, my two older girls have come to their dad and I to say is that the first things out of our mouth about their day, the first things out of our mouth cannot be to ask them about swim. So we try really hard to have swim-free time, a time where we are talking about other interest, or we're totally just breaking out of sport mode and doing something just as a family. We love Disney World. So we like talking about, planning our next, Disney World trip or something to that effect. It's very important to have time away from the sport, not talking about the sport, because there are other aspects to their lives besides swimming. So that would be a piece of advice I would have for parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Missy, you talked a little bit about the triangle, right, of the parent, athlete, coach. Can you touch a little bit more on that and how important it is to have that relationship amongst everybody involved?
It is important. I have shared, emails to my girls' teachers just to say, hey, you see her in class, and this is the one side of her that you see. instead of a parent teacher conference, I just kind of want to paint a little picture for you as far as what's going on in her life and what she is like outside the classroom. Besides being an outstanding student, she's very involved at church. Do you know that she swims, about 10 hours a week, plus a couple of hours for high school. If there's anything that, and I preface all this by saying, if there's anything that you feel like I need to know, please know that you can, email, or call me. And I try to replicate those conversations with our swim coaches as well. Just say, hey, just to let you know, she's going through a tough time. This is a hard adjustment year for her junior year in high school. Again, if there's something that I need to know, please, I just sort of try to make this like an open book conversation and put everybody on the same page, because like you said, some coaches just may not be aware. I had a conversation with our superintendent, and he mentioned it just sort of in this like little thought that a lot of coaches in particularly in high school, they're not employees of the school, they're not employees of the county, so they potentially could receive some different types of training, especially as it comes to social emotional learning. And that's one thing that I've tried to, work on with school counselors, is that ensuring that all coaches that are involved, with the student athlete's life receive some type of training. And maybe that's just a resource card to recognize signs and symptoms, or how to start a conversation, resources that we hand out, how to help a friend. And I think just being open and honest about it. Admittedly, I had a hard time with that to begin with, because that's the stigma, right, associated with it. We don't want to admit that there's ever anything wrong, with any of our kids. But, if they had strep throat, I would email the teacher, say, sorry, they're not going to be in class today. They have strep throat. They have to take an antibiotic. And then, we'll be back. And when it comes to the mind, though, we have a lot of difficulty just beginning that conversation, because we can't see it. So we can't put a Band-Aid on it. We can't put a cast around it. We can't sign it. And all of these things, especially with the athletic participation, taking care of, the easiest way for a coach to jump into the conversation is knowing that taking care of your body is also helping to take care of your mind. And then taking care of that physical health is directly tied to having positive mental health.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. Mental health is health.
It's health.
I want to talk a little bit about the transition from high school to college. I know Missy has talked a little bit about this already. We've touched on it, but if you maybe Tommy could go into a little bit more detail about what that looks like, transitioning from playing in high school to playing in college. And the toll that can take on your mental health, and what you might recommend ways that you can really prioritize your mental health care in that time when teens are going through such a huge life transition.
Yeah, certainly. And, I know Lene went to school a little further away from home than I did. I was just about 2 hours down the road in Lexington, and getting to VMI for football, we get there about a month early, and you're coming into a new class with, anywhere from 40 teammates that are in your class. And then there's already 60 people there in the program already. And, I think what I noticed day one is that really my whole time in high school, no matter what sport, whether it was lacrosse or football, I kind of always knew that I had a spot. I was going to play in some fashion. It almost felt like it was guaranteed, and it wasn't, not trying to shade, the work that I put in or any of my other teammates put in, but you can almost tell pretty immediately that this is a new realm, especially being a freshman, and that age gap from 18 to 22 seems a lot bigger from 14 to 18, I think, right away. And for me, one of the big saving graces, I'll say, certainly for my freshman year, was making the travel team and being able to get away from VMI on the weekends for those away games and playing, and that certainly I think helped out quite a bit. But where it started to take a toll, I'd say, is going into sophomore year. I was a kicker in college, and the kicker that was in front of me had left, and there was a freshman coming in, and that was really the first time I was competing for a job, and felt like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders and something to prove because of a decorated high school career that doesn't matter anymore, and you still look back on that because that's what made you who you were at that point. And actually right at the end of fall camp, they said that I wasn't going to start the first few games, and that really took a toll on me. I think finishing that freshman year was awesome. Had these really high hopes of playing again my sophomore year and kind of building on what I did freshman year, and then having it kind of ripped right from under me put me in a pretty sad state, I would say, for quite a few weeks. I remember getting in touch with my parents and saying I wanted to transfer. We had a football trip they were away that weekend, so I had some extra time. I remember I opened my Common App and I was applying to UVA and Virginia Tech that weekend. I was just ready to get out. And I think having my parents there, they told me they obviously wanted me to stay, but that they wanted to prioritize me and my future and my happiness, I think, and ended up sticking it out. And I ended up playing, the remainder of that year. But that was probably, after that time freshman year when I had to move on from the lacrosse team, that really second time that I was really challenged in college and kind of got down on myself. And, looking back on it, I remember going home for one of the fall breaks, and I asked my aunt, I said, my chest feels kind of funny. Like, I don't really know what it is. Or I was telling her that was happening to me, in a few months during the fall semester. And she said, I remember this vividly. She was like, honey, that's anxiety. And that was the first time, really in my whole life that I experienced that. And it was a new feeling. And as soon as she said it, I was like, you're exactly right. And I think just because that conversation wasn't really readily available, and especially, even my teammates and my roommates and my classmates, we were talking about other things, and especially at a military school, you don't want to show any signs of weakness, which is ridiculous to say because that's not, it's not weak at all. But I think that really kind of brought things full circle for me and showed me, now at least I'm able to diagnose when I'm feeling a certain way and what it might be, and that, I do need to try to speak up when something like that comes up. So that's, a little bit about the college transition. Certainly a big jump from playing in high school and especially growing up in where we did, and other than football, men's lacrosse wasn't super competitive, and I had played my whole life. And 3 weeks into the spring season, my freshman year, I already knew that it was a completely different ball game. So that's just a little bit about my transition. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I think that just goes to show too the importance of having these conversations, right? So that athletes do know, like, okay, this is what I'm feeling and it's okay. And I can talk to someone about it and that's okay, right? We do have one more question come in. So switching gears a little bit to lower and middle school PE teachers and maybe even middle school coaches, what would you want them to know when they're working with younger students, younger athletes? And anybody feel free to jump in on this one. But what might you want them to take away when they're working with athletes that are on the younger side?
I feel like it's my youngest just started middle school. So I was like, wow, there could be a whole brain dump here, on this. Middle school is such a huge transition. And and completely awkward by way of emotion and hormones and they're controlling their emotions. So I'll just sort of speak to that, controlling their emotions. Kids have gone to an elementary school together, they go to middle school, and now they're with kids from 3, 4, 5, different schools. They spend an awful lot of time at that age in their health classes. And I think the health class is a real important place to sort of integrate those conversations. Initially, when the foundation began its programming in 2017, we were incorporating lessons into the health classes because that felt to be the most appropriate setting to, as you're talking about feelings and emotions, to incorporate conversation of mental health, awareness. And I just, again, this is my personal experience right now, again, with my youngest starting, middle school. Generally, you see the kids who struggle the most are the ones who are acting out. And then at that age, they're acting out physically, whether it's through anger or outbursts or emotion. And so I would say, again, incorporating those lessons into the health classes, getting the conversation going, and recognizing when a student has outbursts, that's typically one who's suffering from something in some shape or fashion. And their inability to control it might be a reason, maybe they don't have the support system from home. And that's really where the teachers and the school counselors need to jump in and get ahead of this before something negative happens. That's, again, just a personal experience there.
I have an idea too. I think middle school, elementary school is a perfect opportunity to start driving home the idea that no matter what sport you do and love, that you are so much more than that. Or if you're a musician, you're more than a musician, or you're more than an artist. It's a perfect time. It's almost too late in high school to tell a star athlete that they're more than that. They'll be like, yeah, I know. But really, my goal is to be the best basketball player, and that's what I'm going to do. I think if you start earlier, the earlier and earlier, no matter what their interests are, no matter what their personalities are, that they're always more than what they do.
I agree with Donna. With coaching, I coach 17-year-olds, and then I also, for 2 winters, I coached 7th graders, and that was a very drastic change. The first game, about 5 of them were crying, and I was very confused because I was like, "We're winning. What's going on?" But kind of what Donna was saying, it's like they had the pressure of, I need to be the best. I need to do the X, Y, and Z. And I just had to take a step back and reevaluate and tell them that they were doing perfectly fine. That, yeah, they may have not gotten 10 points, but it's 7th grade basketball. You may not get 10 points for the entire year, and that's okay. That's okay. And so just reiterating what Donna said, just making sure that they know that there is more outside of this. And this generation is very different because we can lose by 30 and they're out making TikTok dances. And I can't get mad at that because I need them to know that they are okay to express their feelings however they want to. But in hindsight, I need them to also know that we did lose by 30. So, so finding a healthy balance between that.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's funny that you say TikTok too, because we just had another question come in that, technology obviously plays a huge role in the life of everybody, but of teens. And so do you have any thoughts on the impact of technology on sports-related mental health issues?
It's a world of comparison out there. I mean, it's, we talk about this all the time at CKG. Social media is it's a platform. It can be used for good. And in so many ways, we see that, that it's not. Comparison is a thief of identity to our teenagers. And they're so impressionable. And so my first child was a guinea pig, and I let her have things and see things, and bless the poor third daughter, she won't see social media, until she's 22, or whenever she can pay for her own phone. So, for for us in our household, it's just been a gradual learning experience. Social media can be used for good, and it is a platform in which to share experiences, and in between recruiting and things of that nature. We've honestly, as a society, made it probably like a necessary evil here, in that sense. But it does bring about comparison, and I think it can make teenagers and athletes feel like they're comparing themselves to something that's completely unrealistic, and that's robbing them of their own precious identity. So I have mixed emotions with that. It can be good, but it should be monitored, and we should wait for as long as we can until the brain is mature enough to understand that this does not define you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I know we are coming up on 8 o'clock.
Oh boy.
I know that was a fast hour.
That was.
And I think we could all sit and talk about this all night. But we have covered all of our Q&A. So Missy, I know we had talked about a few things we just wanted to cover before closing out the evening.
Yeah, we touched on a lot of things, and just for sake of resource and information, the NCAA has a $15 billion expenditure budget for athletics, and 1% of that goes towards student athlete medical expenses, which would cover anything related to their physical or mental health. And so when we're talking about areas of improvement for coaches and athletic departments, I just want to get that word out there that we have to do better by our athletes. There's a lot of revenue and commodities into, our athletes, and they deserve more. They deserve better. Only 1 in 4 athletic departments has been identified as having mental performance or mental health services. So, let's do better. There's revenue out there. Let's make sure that there are resources. We talked about transitions. It's extremely difficult for somebody to go from being, the child, of someone, and that parent taking care of, their meals and their, all of their needs, to them being away at school and having all of these, all of these pressures put on them, from athletics to academics. So let's be more proactive in ensuring that our colleges and universities have resources that are more readily available, and training that is easily accessible to all who are involved with our student athletes. Before we wrap up, I just kind of want to go around and start with Lene. We'll go to Lene, Tommy, and Donna, and really just kind of let's end with, what's the one thing you want student athletes to know? What's kind of your one takeaway?
For me, your purpose is bigger than a ball. Do I need to elaborate? Are we going? I didn't know.
That was pretty profound.
No,
I was gonna need a couple more seconds. That was good though.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Thank you, Lene.
No problem.
Tommy.
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Lene. I would just say, I think, for me, athletics has always been a huge part of my life, and will continue to be. Even after I finished playing football at VMI, I joined the club lacrosse team for my last semester, because I just couldn't. I needed something to fill my time, and I'm still working on distance running, but I still fill most of my extracurricular time playing in adult sports leagues whenever I can do something organized. I miss that team atmosphere. I would say, kind of like Missy started off in saying that, we're not, and Sarah, we're not trying to dissuade anybody from playing sports. Sports is great. I love it, and definitely don't take these moments for granted. But just like Lene said, there is way more to life than athletics, and thanks again for having us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tommy. Donna?
Yes, so I would say, I say this all the time, if I could say anything to the kids and the athletes out there is you are never alone. There is always someone that you can trust, whether that be a friend, whether that be an aunt, whether that be a coach, a professor, a teacher. It could be your best friend's parent. There is someone out there. If you really dig deep, there is always someone there to talk to if you need it, but you are never, ever alone, no matter what the circumstances are.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing Morgan's heart with us and for taking your pain, the pain of your family, and giving it so much life and so much purpose. We encourage everyone, if you haven't visited their website, morgansmessage.org, that you do so. They have Morgan's messengers all throughout the country, the ambassadors that are on campuses and schools and youth organizations is incredible. If you have additional questions, you can always reach us through ckgfoundation.org. And as always, if anyone on here is in crisis, has had thoughts of suicide, please know that there is a 24-hour hotline. Just text 988. That is the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline. It is there as a resource if you need it. We sincerely hope that you do not. And like Donna said, you're never alone. We are all here for you. We can't be all things to one person, but to us, you mean everything. You mean everything to us. So keep fighting the good fight, everybody. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being on tonight. And again, for everyone in attendance, we've recorded this. We will send it out in the coming week. I know in the chat, we've got the Morgan's Message website. They've entered their email addresses if you'd like to take those down. But all of that will also be included in the email that goes out. So if there was anything that you missed from this evening, just keep an eye out for that. We're also working on our 2024 schedule, so just stay tuned for those dates and those topics. But again, thank you to our attendees for joining us this evening. Thank you, Tommy, Lene, Donna. Thank you, Missy, for being on, offering your time and sharing your stories with us. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and I hope you all join us next time. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.